Chapter 49. When Tyler told her the necromancer had claimed another victim, Wednesday didn't waste a second. She grabbed her coat, and together they made their way through the woods to the old ruins of the Pilgrim Meeting House. The air was sharp, the silence unnatural. The trees stood like sentinels, watching as they approached the charred skeleton of the structure. But just as they reached the clearing, Wednesday suddenly stopped. Her breath hitched. The world around her began to dissolve into another, older memory. One she hadn't spoken of since they returned from 1620s Jericho. The cracked beams and scorched stone came alive in her mind, restored to their former state. She heard the angry shouts of the Puritans, the way they dragged the outcasts, women, men, children, into the meeting house, their cries echoing against the wooden rafters. She remembered her own struggle, shouting for them to stop. She remembered Tyler, Goody. Tyler, trying to hold her back, telling her it was too late, Goody getting caught. They seized her, threw her into the building alongside the others. She saw the heavy doors slam shut, the iron bar drop across the handles, then the fire, bright, roaring, hungry, the heat so real in her memory she could feel it stinging her eyes. She didn't even realize her fists were clenched until Tyler gently touched her arm. "Hey," he said quietly, eyes soft with knowing. "You're thinking about the fire, aren't you?" Wednesday blinked, and the vision faded. The ruin returned to what it was, collapsed, soot-stained, overtaken by vines and moss. A ghost of its history. She nodded once. "They left this place to rot," she murmured, her voice flat. "A monument to genocide, desecrated by squatters." Tyler looked at the ashes around their boots, the broken timbers jutting out like charred bones. "Fitting, isn't it?" he said. "That something like this would attract a necromancer." Wednesday's eyes narrowed. "They think they're clever, killing here," she said. "But all they've done is remind me why this war started in the first place." They moved forward together, stepping into the ruin, into the heart of a memory still smoldering beneath the stones. Wednesday's fingertips brushed the warped wooden doors of the ruined meeting house. The instant she touched the scorched surface, her body jerked slightly. Her pupils dilated, breath catching as a vision overtook her like a cold wave. The ruins came alive. Charred beams knit themselves whole. Dust reversed in time. The air grew damp and reeked of smoke, decay, and something older, blood. An old homeless man shuffled across the rotting floorboards, dragging a threadbare coat behind him. Muffled muttering escaped his lips. Then, a shadow moved. From the darkened corner of the old house, a masked figure emerged. Human. No claws, no snarls. Just cold efficiency wrapped in dark clothing. The old man looked up too late. The attacker lunged, slamming a syringe into the man's neck. He staggered backward, clutching at the site of injection. At first, nothing. Then his pupils blew wide, turning his eyes into two glossy, black marbles. His limbs started to tremble, spasming slightly. A thin foam bubbled from the corners of his mouth. He dropped to his knees, coughing, trying to breathe, but the drug moved faster than his body could react. But he didn't collapse. Still struggling, still alive. The killer didn't wait. With mechanical precision, they pulled a blade from their coat and drove it into the man's chest. Once, twice, over and over. There was no hesitation, no noise except for the muted, wet sounds of metal parting flesh, and the man's gargled, dying breaths. Then, a mechanical whir and click. A vintage camera, knocked loose from the victim's belongings, lay nearby. It had landed crookedly on the floor, auto shutter stuck, capturing the scene in ghostly white flashes. The figure turned. They spotted the camera. Without a word, they picked it up, wiped the lens with their sleeve, and walked into the shadows, vanishing into the forest. The vision ended. Wednesday jolted, her body lurching forward, caught instantly in Tyler's arms. Her face was pale, her hands still trembling from the aftershock. "You okay?" Tyler asked, his voice low, eyes scanning her face. I saw it, she whispered. The necromancer. They drugged him. What kind of drug? She looked him dead in the eyes. Synthetic. Pupils dilated. Tremors. Foaming at the mouth. But it wasn't enough, he was still conscious. That's when they used the knife. Tyler's jaw clenched. There was a camera, Wednesday continued. Old. Vintage. Auto shutter. It caught everything. Then they took it. So no proof, he said. Only my vision, she replied. She turned toward the forest, her eyes burning cold. But I'll find them, even if I have to see every last one of their memories through blood-soaked wood. Tyler stood silently beside her. He didn't doubt it for a second. Nevermore was buzzing with excitement as Saturday's Raven Dance approached. Students chattered in the halls, posters with glittery ravens and velvet roses taped onto every notice board. Eden caught up with Wednesday between classes, her cheeks slightly flushed with anticipation. So, are you taking Tyler to the Raven? Eden asked with a grin. Wednesday blinked, deadpan. What the hell is that? Eden laughed, brushing her curls back. It's a dance. Girls ask the boys out. It's tradition. A tradition based on manufactured hormonal desperation and awkward social expectations, Wednesday replied dryly. I have a lot on my mind to make space in my calendar for a stupid dance. She turned and walked off toward class. In botany class, Xavier sat beside her, sketchbook flipped open, doodling idly while Professor Thornhill droned on about nocturnal plants. So, he said, casually, you going with Tyler to the Raven? Is attendance mandatory? She asked, eyes never leaving her notes. No. Just fun. Then I'm not going. I have better things to do. You say that now, he smirked. You don't know what you're missing. There's gonna be a DJ. MC Bloodsucker, even. Before she could respond, her eyes narrowed. A thin red scratch marked the side of Xavier's neck, just below the jawline. Jagged. Not fresh, but healing. Where'd you get that? She asked bluntly. Xavier shrugged. Probably fencing practice. Those blades are dull, but accidents happen. Wednesday didn't respond. She just stared. Later that afternoon, she waited until she saw Xavier leaving his art shed, sketchbook under his arm. Once he was out of sight, she slipped in through the side door. The inside of the studio was a chaotic shrine to his imagination, canvases stacked against the walls, charcoal dust coating every surface, half-empty paint bottles spilling over. She scanned the tables and walls, flipping through half-finished works. And then she saw it. A massive charcoal and ink drawing tacked to the back wall. The creature's form was jagged, muscular, and grotesque, all tendon and sinew, with arms too long for its body, fingers tipped with ragged claws. Its skin looked almost translucent, pale like a corpse left in the sun, with bulging veins like black roots crawling under the surface. Its mouth was grotesquely wide, unnaturally so, filled with rows of uneven, sharp teeth. One eye looked nearly human. The other, black, bottomless. The hide, there was no mistaking it. It was Tyler's monster form, captured in harrowing detail. Her breath hitched. Then her eyes darted to another sheet on the table, a sketch of a narrow corridor underneath the beekeeping shed. Her cellar. Every cracked brick, every nail on the wooden beams was drawn with chilling accuracy. He had been there. Or he had seen it in a vision. Her fingers moved fast. She folded the smaller drawing of the hide and slipped it into her coat pocket. One last glance, no camera, no alarms. Then she moved toward the door. As she exited and turned the corner, Wednesday, she froze. Xavier stood there, brows furrowed. He didn't look angry, just surprised. What are you doing here? I was just passing by, she said coolly, brushing invisible lint off her sleeve. Xavier tilted his head. You sure you weren't in my studio? I'm not in your studio now, she replied flatly and walked away without waiting for him to reply. He watched her go, something unreadable flickering in his expression. Eden had been relentlessly persistent all week, cornering Wednesday every chance she got with the same question. So, are you and Tyler going to the Raven dance, or what? No, Wednesday said flatly for the third time that day. But have you even asked him if he wants to go? I don't think so. Exactly, you don't know, Eden pressed. Maybe he does want to go, but you're too stubborn to ask. Before Wednesday could formulate a cutting reply, Eden grabbed her by the arm and dragged her toward town, muttering something about needing a dress, just in case. They stopped in front of the most horrendous boutique imaginable. The window display looked like it had been styled by a fairy godmother on sugar, pastels, lace, sequins, and frills as far as the eye could see. Wednesday narrowed her eyes like she was staring at a war crime. I refuse to go inside, she said. Eden turned to protest, but Wednesday had already vanished. Around the corner, Thing perched on Wednesday's shoulder. He tapped twice, then pointed his index finger toward a darker shop window across the street. There, on a velvet mannequin under a dim spotlight, hung a sleek black dress, elegant with just enough edge. Victorian-cut neckline, flowing sleeves, shadow-dyed silk. Thing gave her a little thumbs up and dove back into her backpack. Just then, the boutique door beside her opened. Dr. Kinbot stepped out, purse in hand. Well, I never thought I'd see you near the shop, she said, giving Wednesday a once-over. Tell me you're not actually considering going to the Raven. I'm not, Wednesday replied immediately. Did you ask Tyler if he wants to go? Wednesday didn't answer. Her gaze drifted to the shop window just as a clerk removed the dress from the mannequin. The doorbell jingled. Tyler walked out. He was holding a shopping bag and smiling like he'd just won something. Dr. Kinbot smiled too, recognizing him. There you are, he said to Wednesday, walking up to her. So I heard you guys are throwing this dance called Raven. It's all the buzz at the Weathervane. I'm aware, she said, warily. Tell me you don't want to go, she said, almost pleading. I already bought a white suit. I even got a corsage. I hope it's your size, he added, handing her the shopping bag. You know I could have just stolen it, Wednesday replied, eyeing the bag. I know, Tyler grinned. But I wanted to buy you something. After all, you gave me that tailored suit to wear to the art exhibition last semester. This felt fair. She stared at him a moment, then quietly said, That was Grandmama, but thank you. Noticing her hesitation, he softened. Hey, if you don't want to go, we can just have a date night instead. Your call. Wednesday looked back at the shop window. Empty now. Then back at Tyler. You already bought me the dress, she said. I don't see any reason why I can't go. Tyler beamed. He slung his arm around her shoulders, and the two of them walked off together down the street. Behind them, Dr. Kinbot stood by the boutique doorway, quietly smiling to herself. Wednesday pushed open the old shed door, its rusty hinges groaning in protest. The air inside smelled faintly of smoke and honey. A low buzz filled the room from the surrounding hives outside. She noticed the floorboards were already ajar. Her eyes narrowed. Someone's been in here, she muttered. She rushed forward and knelt by the open trapdoor. Peering down into the dim space below, she saw Eugene standing at the bottom of the ladder, his flashlight bouncing off stone walls. Eugene, she called down, her voice sharp. He looked up, grinning. Wednesday. This is so cool. You have a secret cellar under the shed. She descended quickly, boots thudding on each rung. It's not a cellar. It's my secret space, she said firmly, stepping off the ladder and folding her arms. You can't tell anyone about it. Cross my heart and hope to get stung, Eugene said, doing an exaggerated scout salute. Where does that tunnel go? He pointed to the narrow passage behind her, dimly lit by lanterns. To a library, she said flatly. A secret society library. You're not allowed there. Understood, he said, eyes wide. Mum's the word. She turned to climb back up. Make sure you close the floor before someone falls in. Like me. Don't worry, Eugene said as he followed her up. No one ever comes around here. Too many bees. They're good for privacy. Once back in the shed, Eugene reached behind a crate and pulled out a small glass jar filled with thick golden honey. It shimmered in the light. He held it out to her. Could you, give this to Eden? And ask if she'd go to the Raven with me? Wednesday stared at the jar. This is your method of courtship? She likes honey, he said with a hopeful smile. And bees. And I figured, sweet gesture, right? Wednesday took the jar from him. What will you do if she says no? He shrugged, trying to act cool. I'll still show up. My moms say people like me more when they grow up. There was a short silence. You might be right, Wednesday said, turning to go. Now put the floorboards back. Got it, Eugene said, already reaching for the planks. The sun was dipping low outside the window when Wednesday returned. Enid was painting her nails an electric blue, perched on her bed like a rainbow-colored bird. As Wednesday walked in, holding a crisp shopping bag, Enid spun around. Her eyes widened. Oh! My Gorgon, is that a shopping bag? You went shopping. Wednesday raised an eyebrow and wordlessly held out the jar of honey. Eugene wants you to have this. And he asked if you go to the Raven with him. Enid blinked, taking the jar. She said. That's actually really sweet. But I already have a date. Still, this is adorable. She twisted off the cap and sniffed the honey. Oh, it even smells like his hives. Wednesday set the shopping bag on her bed. You're ignoring the more alarming part of this conversation, she said. Enid reached over and peeked into the bag. Wait, Wednesday, did you buy a dress? I didn't buy it. Tyler did, Wednesday said. Enid squealed. He picked one out for you? That's like mega romantic. It's a dress, Wednesday said plainly. Not a marriage proposal. But you're actually going to wear it? Enid asked, hopping to her feet, barely containing her excitement. I agreed to attend. I didn't agree to combust into glitter. Enid grinned. This is going to be epic. I need to curl your hair. You'll do no such thing, Wednesday said, already bracing herself. The hall had been transformed into a shimmering winter wonderland, with blue and silver decorations draped across the ceiling and enchanted frost creeping along the walls. Students twirled across the dance floor in gowns, suits, and sparkling masks, all in line with the icy theme. All except one. The crowd parted as Wednesday Addams entered. She stood out like spilled ink on white paper. Refusing to follow the Raven-esque dress code, Wednesday wore a striking black tulle gown, high-necked, long-sleeved, and layered like the shadows of a storm. It was vintage, gothic, and elegant in its rebellion. The fabric swirled around her like smoke, each step quiet but powerful. Her hair was braided and wrapped around her scalp, severe and ceremonial. Beside her, Tyler Galpin looked like he'd stepped out of a classic film. His suit was white with cool blue satin accents on the lapels and tie, matching the dance's theme. Crisp, clean, and perfectly tailored, it contrasted sharply with Wednesday's darkness. He was calm on the surface, but inside, something stirred, something predatory. The hide. As they moved through the room, Xavier stood near the back wall, eyes locked on Wednesday. His gaze lingered, not threatening, but intense and distracted. Tyler felt it immediately. Or rather, the hide did. Tyler's smile tightened. His steps slowed. His eyes flicked to Xavier with cold precision, and for a second, just a second, a flicker of rage crossed his face. A death glare from across the room, primal and warning. He turned away. And then, Miss Thornhill. The hide's mood shifted in an instant. As soon as she stepped into view, something inside Tyler went rigid. The smile froze. His breathing changed. She knows. She knows what I am. A low growl threatened to rise in his throat, but Tyler clenched his jaw, schooling his expression. He couldn't risk it, not here, not now. Not in front of her. Miss Thornhill approached with her usual pleasant smile. You two look absolutely stunning tonight, she said. Her eyes lingered on Tyler for a moment too long. The hide surged, wanting to lash out, to tear her apart for knowing his secret and smiling anyway. But he forced himself to let Tyler speak. "Thanks, Miss Thornhill," Tyler said, flashing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Wednesday makes this look easy." She turned to Wednesday, complimented her bold fashion choice, and moved on. The Hyde watched her walk away, gaze burning with restrained fury. "Great. You both look amazing," Enid chirped, bounding over to them. She twirled in her sparkly silver mini dress, eyes wide with excitement. "Wednesday, that dress is totally you." Wednesday arched an eyebrow. "Why are you here with Lucas Walker?" Enid looked sheepish. "Oh, him? It's just a strategic jealousy move. Ajax forgot to confirm, so I'm giving him something to think about." Tyler raised a skeptical brow. "Lucas Walker? The mayor's kid?" Wednesday's eyes narrowed at the boy lingering nearby in a gray suit. Lucas came over with a rehearsed grin. "I come in peace." Wednesday didn't smile. "If you're planning anything," she said coolly, "you better make it worthwhile. Otherwise, I will chop you into pieces." "Small ones." Lucas chuckled nervously and backed off. Later in the evening, Tyler left to grab drinks for them both. As he passed Xavier again, he accidentally spilled a bit of punch on his shirt. "Oh, my bad," Tyler said, handing Xavier a napkin. Xavier looked annoyed but not surprised. "Of course." Tyler leaned in slightly. His voice dropped to a low, razor-edged whisper. "Stay away from her. Or next time, it won't be a beating. You remember last year, right?" Xavier tensed. His posture stiffened and his jaw clenched. He didn't respond, just stepped back, eyes avoiding Tyler's. Tyler returned to Wednesday with 2 glasses in hand, calm and composed once more. As he handed her the drink, he glanced back at Xavier, not as a boy with jealousy, but as a predator guarding what he believed was his. The lights dimmed and the spotlight swept across the dance floor. The haunting rhythm of "Goo Goo Muck" by the Cramps echoed through the hall, strange, offbeat, and perfectly inappropriate. Wednesday Addams stepped into the light. Dressed in her signature black, a vintage-inspired tulle dress with sharp lines, layered ruffles, and movement like smoke, she began to dance. And everyone stared. Her arms jerked and swooped with intensity. Fingers twisted and snapped. Feet stomped with theatrical force. It wasn't graceful. It wasn't rehearsed. It was raw, weird, and mesmerizing. The crowd didn't know whether to laugh or clap. But Tyler did. He watched her with something like reverence, smiling, quiet, never looking away. Even as others whispered or raised their phones, Tyler's eyes were locked on her like he was watching something sacred. Inside him, something stirred. The Hyde. It blinked from within the shell of Tyler Galpin, fascinated, possessive. It took a slow, burning note of every boy who watched her, especially Xavier. Xavier stood off to the side, arms folded, trying to pretend he wasn't staring. He failed. The Hyde noticed. It didn't like it. When the song ended and the cheers rose, Wednesday calmly walked off the dance floor, as if she hadn't just hypnotized a room full of people. Outside, the air was crisp. She leaned against the railing alone, or so she thought. Bianca appeared from the shadows, her expression soaked in something heavier than water. "Didn't think you'd be the one to outshine everyone," Bianca said bitterly. "I didn't come here to shine," Wednesday replied. "I came here because someone asked me to," Bianca scoffed. "You and Tyler, huh?" Wednesday blinked. "What's wrong?" Bianca hesitated. "Xavier and I are done. Not that we were really anything for the past month. But it's over now." "How is that my fault?" Wednesday asked. "I barely speak to you. Or him." "I know," Bianca said. "It's not your fault. That's the worst part. You do nothing and somehow everything shifts around you. You and Tyler have something. Something real. I don't even know if I've ever had that. People are drawn to me because of what I am, not who I am." Wednesday studied her, eyes narrowing. "You envy my indifference." "I envy your clarity," Bianca admitted. "You don't care what people think. You don't need anyone. And when someone cares about you, you know it's real. And you're afraid yours isn't. Wednesday finished. Bianca nodded slowly. I don't trust myself. Not when I don't even know if people's feelings are theirs or something I made them feel. There was a long pause between them. I think I hate you a little less now, Bianca said. Wednesday tilted her head. Pity. Back inside, the music changed, slower, dreamier. The last dance of the night. Tyler reappeared, brushing past Lucas and Ajax on his way to the drinks table. He picked up 2 cups. Then, a deliberate misstep. The punch splashed onto Xavier's shirt. Oops, Tyler said coolly. Didn't see you there. Xavier flinched. Seriously? Tyler leaned in. His voice dropped, dark and sharp. Stay away from her. Unless you want a repeat of last year. Xavier's expression hardened. But he said nothing, just watched as Tyler turned and walked off. He joined Wednesday near the refreshment table, offering her the cup. Before she could take it, a strange click echoed through the ceiling. Then the sprinklers went off. First, water. Then a sudden burst of red. Screams broke out instantly. Chaos erupted around them. Students ran, slipped, shrieked. The paint-stained gowns and suits like blood. The perfect cliché. Wednesday looked up, smiling faintly. For a moment, it was beautiful, cathartic, almost romantic. She tasted it. Paint, she muttered in disappointment. Beside her, Tyler stood still, but his smile fell. The hide wasn't amused either. I was hoping for real blood, it murmured through Tyler's thoughts. He looked at her and smirked. We could fix that. Want to go hunting? Around them, everyone screamed. Principal Weems roared over the intercom to evacuate. Xavier helped Bianca, who had slipped again. Miss Thornhill stood by the exit, watching Tyler with a hard, knowing look. Everyone else was panicking. Wednesday and Tyler stood in the center of it all, calm, soaked, and silent. They weren't horrified. They weren't afraid. They were bored. I'd have given them high praise, Wednesday muttered. If they hadn't been so cheap. Tyler leaned closer. Come on. Let's get out of here. They walked through the red haze like it meant nothing. Chapter 50. Mayor Walker's voice boomed through the otherwise quiet hallway of their home, echoing off the walls like a reprimand that had been years in the making. Do you even understand what you've done? He barked, glaring at Lucas. I'm already in legal trouble with the Addams family. Now you want to drag Nevermore into this mess too? Lucas rolled his eyes. It was just a prank. No one got hurt. No one got hurt yet, the mayor snapped. You think I need Principal Weems breathing down my neck when I've already got Addams family threatening to sue me for losing that damn journal? Lucas shrugged, defensive. Even Wednesday didn't seem that upset. She was more disappointed we didn't use real blood. Mayor Walker's jaw clenched. Exactly. When Wednesday Addams finds your stunt pathetic, that's when you know you've hit rock bottom. Lucas crossed his arms, but the confidence in his posture crumbled under his father's stare. The mayor took a step closer, lowering his voice. You think you can walk around acting high and mighty, full of attitude, because I'm in the mayor's seat? He pointed a finger at Lucas's chest. If I wasn't, you'd be in juvie or worse. So start acting like someone who understands the weight of his last name. Lucas didn't answer. He didn't need to. His silence was answer enough. The mayor grabbed his coat and keys, muttering under his breath as he headed out the door. The bell above the sheriff's office door jingled sharply as Mayor Walker pushed inside, the early morning tension radiating off him like heat. Sheriff Donovan Galpin looked up from his desk, already tense. What now? He asked without pleasantries. Mayor Walker shut the door behind him and spoke in a low voice. Put the missing person case on hold. Donovan blinked. Excuse me. You heard me, the mayor said. Put it on ice. At least until after Parents' Weekend. Parents' Weekend? Donovan repeated. You want me to stall a missing person case for a school event? No. I want you to focus on finding that journal, the mayor corrected. The Addamses are coming back to town. And the last thing I need is Gomez and Morticia Addams using a school visit as an excuse to remind me that we lost a 400-year-old artifact they gave to the city for safekeeping. Donovan rose from his chair, his hands braced on the desk. So you want me to drop a real case involving a real person to chase down an antique? That antique, the mayor said through gritted teeth, is worth $9.7 million. You know what that kind of value means? Lawsuits, scandals, and a personal end to my political career. So, unless you want to be out of a job with me, you'll find that journal before Addams' family decides the lawsuit goes public. Donovan stared at him, seething. That's not law enforcement. That's PR, he said coldly. And this town runs on PR, the mayor replied without apology. You'd do well to remember that. The announcement that the Addams family would be visiting Nevermore, and, by extension, Jericho, for Parents' Weekend spread like wildfire. The town, already uneasy from the recent attacks and unanswered disappearances, now found itself bracing for something far more disruptive, the looming presence of Gomez and Morticia Addams. Everyone was on edge. At Nevermore, Principal Weems doubled the campus patrols. Teachers whispered nervously in break rooms. Jericho's townspeople clutched their pearls and warned their children not to wander near the woods. And Miss Thornhill? Her mood darkened. The mayor and sheriff, who had once seemed committed to solving the murders and the missing person case, had now abruptly shifted their focus back to the Addams family's priceless journal, thanks, no doubt, to the threat of litigation. Sheriff Donovan Galpin showed up at her cottage again that morning. He tried to play it casual, asking the same questions he had weeks ago, only now laced with the urgency of a man being pressured from above. She answered them all. Sweetly. Kindly. Just as Laurel Gates had practiced for years. But it was Wednesday who troubled her more. The girl had started watching her again, quietly, curiously, from across the quad, during botany class in the greenhouse. Even worse, she wasn't alone in her suspicion. Tyler was watching her, too. Whenever she stopped by the Weathervane Cafe for a quiet tea or her usual lavender scone, she'd find them in their usual booth. Wednesday with her iced black coffee, Tyler with his folded arms and that calculating stare he'd inherited from his father. It was becoming too frequent to ignore. She sat alone in the corner one afternoon, pretending to scroll through her phone while her eyes flicked to their table. She couldn't hear everything, but pieces of their conversation reached her ears in sharp fragments, just enough to make her tense. Tyler's voice, steady but serious, "I want to talk to your parents about my mom." That made Miss Thornhill stiffen. Since they all went to school together, he added. Wednesday didn't protest. In fact, she nodded. Sure. Miss Thornhill's gaze sharpened. Her tea sat untouched. The weekend had finally arrived. Parents from across the country were filing into Nevermore's Gothic gates, mingling awkwardly with enchanted gargoyles and teen outcasts. It was a crisp morning tinged with dread, for some more than others. Wednesday and Eden stood together near the main path, watching the chaos unfold. I wish my parents would just stay home, Eden muttered, arms crossed. They're going to ask if I've had my transformation yet, and I haven't. Wednesday glanced at her sidelong. It's none of their business. Let them hull to each other in disappointment. I swear, if my mom brings up that full moon ritual one more time, I'll scream. Wednesday's eyes narrowed as she scanned the crowd. I was hoping mine wouldn't show up at all. With all the Addams infighting over the Friday artifacts, I figured they'd be too distracted to make the trip. But just as she spoke, a long, black car pulled up near the gates. Out stepped Morticia and Gomez Addams, dressed in coordinated black and silver. Morticia's heels clicked ominously against the cobblestones. Gomez waved enthusiastically, nearly toppling over Pugsley with a full-bodied hug. They showed up, Wednesday said flatly. Within moments, Principal Weems appeared and ushered Morticia and Gomez into her office, the concerned crease between her brows already deepening. Wednesday didn't bother following them. She knew what was coming. Not long after, as expected, they went to Dr. Kimbott's office. The entire Addams family, Wednesday included, for a family bonding therapy session. Wednesday nearly groaned. The last time she sat through one of these, she ended up sharing trauma metaphors with Tyler and regretting every second. Still, she followed them into the room. Her instincts warned her it would go badly. She was right. Dr. Kimbot sat upright in her chair, clipboard in hand, already amused by the chaos in front of her. "So, Pugsley," she began, voice calm but probing, "what's something you and Wednesday do for fun?" "She used to waterboard me," Pugsley said brightly. Morticia smiled. "Sibling bonding can be so creative." Dr. Kimbot raised an eyebrow. "I see." Wednesday didn't flinch. He was fine. Dr. Kimbot then shifted the conversation. "Let's talk about Wednesday's boyfriend. Tyler, isn't it?" Morticia gave a graceful nod. "It's perfectly fine. He's a sweet boy. Honestly, it would have been lovely if he had joined us in Alaska last summer." Wednesday was really looking forward to it. She'd already picked out his room, Gomez added, smiling fondly. "He didn't back out by choice," Wednesday said, her tone like ice. "His father took away his plane tickets and passport." "That's unfortunate," Dr. Kimbot said. Tyler was devastated. "I remember how sullen he was that whole summer, brooding, angry, especially toward his father. He kept saying he didn't want to be left behind again." Wednesday blinked slowly, hiding the flicker of emotion that crossed her face. And that concluded the most uncomfortable hour of her weekend, so far. Jericho's morgue was never supposed to be a crime scene. And yet, Sheriff Donovan Galpin stood frozen in the doorway, staring at the lifeless body of the town coroner slumped across his workstation, blood pooling beneath the rolling stool. The overhead lights flickered once, then again. But they revealed everything the camera no longer could. That was the first thing Galpin noticed. The security camera, once bolted to the ceiling just above the door, was gone. Not disabled. Not smashed. Gone. Only a suicide note. Completely vanished. Whoever did it didn't bother hiding their presence. They removed the evidence altogether, which raised 1,000 red flags in Galpin's mind. But not enough to stop him from arresting Gomez Addams. In the police station, Gomez was seated behind bars, now in an orange jumpsuit, his wrists bound by cold steel cuffs. Galpin didn't look at Morticia. He flipped through his file and answered coldly, accessory to murder, tampering with evidence and obstruction of justice. He turned to Wednesday, who stood stoically beside her mother. "And if it turns out the coroner was pressured to falsify his report? That adds conspiracy and bribery to the list." Wednesday blinked slowly. "So, if someone forces another person to lie to cover up a crime, that's obstruction and conspiracy," Galpin interrupted. "And depending on how it was done, possibly coercion or witness intimidation. If money or favors were involved, you can add bribery." After Wednesday heard the whole story from her mother, she took her a grave digging for evidence with Tyler. The graveyard was quiet. Mist curled around the headstones like fingers clawing at secrets buried deep beneath the earth. Wednesday Addams, armed with a rusted shovel and an iron will, stared down at the gravestone of Garrett Gates. "Let's get this over with," she said coolly. Tyler Galpin stood beside her, silently jamming his shovel into the soil. Morticia Addams, in her long black gown, stood off to the side with ghostly elegance, not lifting a finger to help, but watching her daughter and Tyler with prideful detachment. "Did you know," she said conversationally as dirt flew, "Tyler's mother, Françoise, was the finest fencer in our year. Her parry was like poetry. I rather admired her." Tyler glanced up, smiling at Morticia's story. They reached the coffin just as the moon broke through the clouds. Wednesday pried open the aged lid. The corpse of Garrett Gates lay inside, rotted and collapsed in on itself, his decayed skin tight around brittle bones. But what drew her attention was the unmistakable residue near the lips and blackened veins along the throat. "Nightshade," she muttered, scraping a sample with a vial. As soon as she touched the corpse, her fingers froze. Her pupils dilated. She was pulled into a vision. Wednesday stands on the balcony of Nevermore 30 years ago. She sees a younger Morticia in her pristine Nevermore uniform, her hand bloodied from wielding a blade. Garrett Gates is there too, raving mad, foam gathering at his lips. Garrett convulses, clutching at his throat. He falls over the railing, not from the push, but because he's already dying. His face is pale. His lips blue. His eyes wide and glassy. The vial of poison around his neck leaks down his shirt. Morticia stabbed him and, taking the sword from her, Wednesday gasped and stumbled back from the coffin. Red and blue lights suddenly bathed the tombstones in a nauseating glow. Put the shovel down. Hands where I can see them. Sheriff Donovan Galpin's voice rang out as he stormed into view with 2 deputies behind him, guns holstered but ready. His flashlight beam locked on his son. Tyler froze. Tyler. Donovan's voice cracked. What the hell are you doing? Wednesday stepped in front of Tyler, unfazed. I was extracting evidence to clear my father's name. Donovan looked furious. You're digging up a grave, Addams. That's a felony. And Tyler, God, what's gotten into you? But Wednesday didn't flinch. She simply adjusted her collar and said, Unless you'd like to hand the Addams family a check for $10 million for the theft and negligence concerning our missing 400-year-old journal, I'd suggest you let me speak to the mayor. Morticia finally stepped forward, eyes sparkling. I suggest you listen to her. We do love litigation, and we always win. The mayor's office felt smaller than usual. Wednesday stood stiff, her arms crossed, a Ziploc bag containing Garrett Gates's severed, blackened finger resting on the mayor's desk like a cursed relic. Why did you drop the charges against my father 30 years ago? She asked flatly. Her voice didn't rise, but the cold edge in it cut sharper than any blade. Don't lie. I already know the truth. Mayor Walker looked from her to Sheriff Galpin, confused. What's she talking about? Wednesday didn't blink. Garrett was dead long before my father stabbed him. He ingested deadly nightshade. His body was already shutting down. Your medical reports must have shown that. Unless someone tampered with them. Galpin's jaw tensed. He planned to poison the drinks at the Raven, Wednesday went on. Kill every outcast in Nevermore that night. But he lost control and foamed at the mouth before he could do it. My father didn't murder him. He stopped a massacre. The mayor stood frozen behind his desk, his knuckles white. So why cover it up? She pressed. Donovan Galpin turned to Walker. Tell her. The mayor exhaled shakily. The Gates family dropped the charges. We didn't want the backlash. Their name was tied to this town. Their father was one of Jericho's largest donors. His voice dropped. We kept it quiet for the sake of the town. No one wanted headlines saying an elite normie family tried to poison Nevermore. Wednesday's eyes narrowed. You buried a terrorist and branded my father a murderer instead. Walker didn't answer. She leaned closer. Let's talk about recent events. The homeless man who died last week? He had nightshade in his system too, didn't he? Donovan hesitated, then nodded once. Yes. And the body pulled out of the river? Same, he admitted. Traces in the bloodstream, even after being submerged. What about the one found in the woods? Mangled. Bear attack, Walker said too quickly. No, Wednesday snapped. That wasn't a bear. The necromancer took what they needed and left the rest for the wildlife to clean up. And if that wasn't enough, they made sure to keep us busy. She let the silence sit, then added. By killing the coroner. Donovan looked up sharply. He committed suicide. There was a note. Wednesday stared at him. Did he now? She said, cool and slow. Funny. Why would Dr. Anwar kill himself when he had nothing to be guilty for? He wasn't part of the cover-up. He never falsified the autopsy. Garrett died of poisoning, and the coroner reported it honestly. But someone silenced him before he could speak again. Walker's voice was tight. You're saying someone murdered the coroner and made it look like suicide? That's exactly what I'm saying. She looked them both in the eye. He didn't write that suicide note. Or if he did, He wrote it with a gun to his head. Tyler, standing behind his father, looked pale. Why? Why kill him now? That's what we still don't know, Wednesday said. But it's connected. Someone wants us looking into Garrett Gates' death all over again. That finger, this whole spectacle, was left for us. She turned to the sheriff. Check the coroner's handwriting. The bullet wound angle. Camera logs from the morgue. Unless those have mysteriously disappeared too. Donovan's face dropped as realization sank in. Morticia finally chimed in and said that it wasn't entirely Garrett's fault. She then stared at the mayor and said, "You could have prevented all of this if you had done something when I filed my complaint about him stalking me." After Wednesday's father was released from custody, Sheriff Donovan Galpin approached Gomez and apologized for not giving him the benefit of the doubt. Gomez chuckled and waved it off. "You can make it up to me by letting Tyler visit us for winter and summer vacation," he said with a wink. Wednesday, standing nearby, narrowed her eyes ever so slightly. She was really looking forward to spending the summer with him. Donovan sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "I know. They've grown awfully close," he admitted. Gomez's expression turned more serious. "I'd pity any boy caught in our viper's gaze. But if he survived this long, he must be made of tougher stuff. She won't tolerate anything less." They both turned to glance at Tyler and Wednesday standing together. Chapter 51. Parents' weekend was finally over. Wednesday and Eden stood shoulder to shoulder beneath the skeletal branches near Nevermore's main hall, watching the tail lights of the last parent vehicle disappear past the gates. Eden exhaled loudly. "Well, that was a disaster wrapped in a monologue." Wednesday didn't answer. "I told my mom I'm not going to conversion camp next summer," Eden continued, her voice slightly shaky but proud. "I said if I'm still in one piece by then, I'll decide where I go." Not her. Wednesday offered a small, silent nod. It wasn't indifference, it was calculation. Someone had just tried to send her father to prison. That wasn't a coincidence. It was a message. And she was going to find out who sent it. But before either of them could say another word, a roar of heat surged through the air. Gasps erupted behind them as Nevermore students and staff spilled out onto the lawn. The words had appeared in flames, scorched into the earth in front of the school, burning bright in the dusk light. "Fire will rain." Screams broke out. Someone ran for Principal Weems. The sky, for just a second, seemed to flicker. Wednesday stared at the flames, her eyes narrowing. Wednesday realized too late that she'd been tricked. The descent into Crackstone's crypt on Raven Island had felt suspicious from the beginning. But when she stepped into the chamber and saw the string lights, the paper bats, the awkwardly placed cake, her eyes darkened. Surprise, a chorus of voices echoed, led by Eden, Xavier, Bianca, Yoko, Ajax, Eugene, and, worst of all, Tyler. Things scuttled proudly toward her, holding a sparkler. Wednesday stared down at the disembodied hand, her voice icier than usual. "What part of no celebration didn't you understand?" Thing recoiled. She turned her gaze to Tyler next. "You too?" Disappointing. He looked guilty. "We just thought." "You thought wrong," she snapped. But her scowl froze when she saw it, etched into the stone of Crackstone's casket in a language older than Latin. A phrase that mirrored the one seared into Nevermore's lawn. "Fire will rain." The room fell silent as she stepped closer. Her fingers brushed the stone, and everything dropped away. She stood alone, staring across a broken landscape, the ruins of the Gates mansion in the distance, surrounded by withered trees and ash. And opposite her stood Goody Addams. Wednesday's voice was low, accusatory. "What the hell did you do, Goody?" Goody didn't flinch. "You left us leaderless during the most fragile moment of the treaty. The normies rebelled after you vanished. I did what I could to salvage the truth." Wednesday stepped forward, demanding more. "Why show me this?" Goody's expression tightened. "Because if you want answers, this is the place you must seek before it's too late." Wednesday's eyes flew open. She was on the ground, Tyler's arms around her. You passed out, he said, alarmed. She pulled herself to her feet without answering, brushing him off. Her expression had hardened again. The others crowded around, concerned, confused, but Wednesday silenced them with a look. If you really want to give me a happy birthday, she said coolly, take me somewhere forgotten. Broken, abandoned. The group exchanged uncertain glances. Then Tyler stepped forward slowly, catching her meaning. The old Gates mansion, he offered. Wednesday didn't smile, but the glint in her eyes said yes. Everyone froze. The words "take me there now" hung in the air, sharp and final. No one dared argue. Tyler broke the silence first. I'll drive. Eden, determined to salvage the night, raised her hand. I'm tagging along. This is still your birthday. Eugene's hand shot up too. Field research. You're not ditching me this time. Xavier hesitated, then glanced at Tyler. I'll come. Tyler didn't say anything, but the way his jaw tightened said plenty. Something dark flickered in his eyes, the hide in him recognizing a rival. Still, they all piled into Tyler's car. The night swallowed them whole as they drove beyond the iron gates of Jericho, out toward the forgotten edge of town. Did you see the Gates mansion in your vision? Xavier asked from the back seat, trying to keep his voice steady. Wednesday sat stiffly in the front passenger seat, arms crossed. Yes, and ironically, the same serial killer who murdered the coroner also wanted us to look into Garrett Gates. Her voice was dry. It's almost like the past is screaming at us. The car went quiet. By the time they reached the overgrown driveway, curfew had long passed. Moonlight filtered through twisted branches, casting warped shadows over what remained of the Gates estate. The mansion stood like a corpse in formal wear. Its roof sagged under decades of rot, ivy choking its Gothic frame. Cracked stone gargoyles watched from the rooftop like sentinels. The front door hung slightly ajar, creaking as the wind passed through. Blackened windows stared out at them like lidless eyes. Inside, the air was thick with dust and mildew. Wallpaper peeled like dead skin. Portraits of the Gates family lined the walls, their faces eerily preserved, eyes seeming to follow their every move. Eugene clicked on his phone flashlight and began filming. If this was an episode of Haunted Histories, I'd be narrating about now, he whispered. The legendary Gates mansion, last known residence of Laura Gates, sister of serial killer Garrett Gates. Preserved like a mausoleum. Wednesday moved first, entering the parlor. There, behind a broken chaise lounge and half-burned curtains, she found it, an altar. Old, yet disturbingly well-kept. Behind a secret compartment. Bones, burned candles, dried herbs, and something carved into the stone wall, Joseph Crackstone's name. Wednesday touched the soot-stained altar. It's been used recently, she murmured. Eden peeked over her shoulder. I mean, who doesn't have a creepy altar under their living room? Wednesday didn't blink. Every day is Halloween at my house. Eugene's light caught a large, looming portrait above the fireplace, one of the Gates family. Tyler stepped closer, scowling. Why would anyone worship a xenophobic maniac? Wednesday didn't answer. Instead, she stared at the painted faces. Something about Gates's eyes felt too lifelike. We should split up, she said. Cover more ground. I'm good, Xavier said quickly. I'm staying in a group. Yeah, hard pass, Eden added. I've seen horror movies. They went upstairs together, the floorboards groaning beneath them. Laura Gates's room was clean, eerily pristine. A velvet bedspread, dusty porcelain dolls on the shelf, a vanity. Wednesday crossed the room and opened a wooden music box. A lullaby played, a warped, haunting tune. She closed it gently and slid it into her bag. They found the garage next. An old vintage car sat under a tarp, its body rusted but elegant. A film of clean like it had just been bought. Then they went down into the basement. And that's when everything changed. The smell hit first: copper, damp, rot. The walls were lined with shelves full of preserved specimens, jars filled with yellowing flesh and organs, surgical tools hanging from hooks, all gleaming faintly in Eugene's flashlight. Tables were caked in dried blood. A bone saw rested beside a pair of gloves still curled as if recently used, and against the far wall, coolers. When Tyler opened one, Eden screamed. Inside were severed limbs, arms, hands, a partial torso. Wednesday stepped forward, her face unreadable. "This is where the serial killer displays his trophies," she said. Eden backed into a wall, her breath coming fast and shallow. I can't. I can't breathe," she gasped. "I need to get out." Then, above them, slam. The sound of a door creaking open. Footsteps overhead. They all went still. Xavier pulled Eden into a shadowed corner, covered her mouth with his hand. Wednesday glanced up toward the ceiling, whispering, "We're not alone." Eden trembled, her back pressed to the cold stone wall, eyes darting between Wednesday, Tyler, and the shadowed staircase above. No one spoke. Even Eugene had finally stopped recording, lowering his phone like it might give away their location. Then Xavier whispered, "We need to get out of here." Wednesday gave a small nod. Agreed. No arguments. Just the sound of their footsteps, soft and deliberate, as they made their way back upstairs. Every creak beneath their feet sounded like thunder in the silence. The air grew heavier the closer they got to the main hall. When they reached the front door, the handle moved. Click. Xavier didn't hesitate. He flung the door open. "Go!" They bolted. The door slammed behind them with a metallic bang that echoed into the trees. They didn't stop running until they reached Tyler's car, headlights off, barely visible among the gnarled woods. Tyler fumbled with the keys, breath ragged. Everyone piled in, Eden practically diving into the back seat. Tyler turned the ignition, and they peeled away from the cursed mansion. The road back to Nevermore was winding and dark. The tension inside the car didn't fade with distance. Halfway through the ride, Wednesday suddenly said, "Stop the car." Tyler hit the brakes, gravel crunching beneath the tires. "Someone needs to call the sheriff," she added coldly. "We should go straight to Nevermore," Xavier said firmly. "Let Weems handle it. I'll feel better when we're behind school gates." Eden quickly nodded. "He's right. We don't know who was in that house." Wednesday stared ahead through the windshield, her jaw tight, but she didn't argue. They drove in silence the rest of the way. When they arrived at Nevermore, the campus was dark and quiet, still under curfew. They burst through the front doors, Eugene gasping for air from sprinting up the slope. Eden clutched his arm as they made their way down the hall, and Wednesday stormed ahead, straight to Principal Weems's office. Weems was still at her desk, a stack of files in front of her. Her eyes narrowed the second she saw the group. Before she could speak, Wednesday handed her Eugene's phone. "Watch the footage," she said. "We found something. You'll want to call the sheriff." Weems took the phone. One glance at the screen and her expression shifted from annoyed to alarmed. She hit play. Within seconds, her fingers moved to her office landline. "Sheriff Galpin, it's Principal Weems. I need you at Nevermore immediately. No, I'm not exaggerating. They found something, possibly tied to the murders." She looked up sharply. "All of you, stay here. And no one says a word until he arrives." Wednesday leaned against the wall, arms folded. In her mind, she could still hear the creak of that upstairs door. And she knew, somehow, this was only the beginning.